Joining us now from Cairo is NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel, who has been reporting all day on the nationwide character of the uprising. Now, Richard, thanks again for staying up late to talk to us.
It's a pleasure, Rachel.
Tell me how surprised you are by the spread of the protests today in Egypt and by their character.
What I was most surprised about today was how they changed. They spread to a different sector. They spread to the workforce. And what we saw was labor strikes starting in many, many sectors, dozens of places. We counted just at least 14 different sectors: textiles, oil and gas, the healthcare sector, journalists, in cities all over the country. And Egypt doesn't have that much to survive on. It's a poor country, but it does have big industry. And if industry stops, then it doesn't seem like this country can really continue to stand on its feet. Egypt can't stand to have its labor force stop working, and we're seeing that starting today, and more strikes are planned for tomorrow.
Richard, is there anything to understand about the sort of tactical sustainability or strength of the two sides in this conflict from the violence that was used against protesters in some of these protests outside of Cairo today?
The government has been able to tolerate protests if they're in Tahrir Square, if they're relatively peaceful. It doesn't like them, but it can't tolerate them going into other cities. It can't tolerate them going by key sectors of society, particularly Suez. Suez is one of the things that makes this country run. If you look at Egypt, it's North Africa. It's surrounded by a lot of desert, and particularly in the east and in the west, and then it's got Sudan to the south. What makes Egypt survive? It has oil and gas, it has tourism, it has industry, and it has the Suez Canal. Tourism is already gone. Oil and gas and industry are now threatened, and that doesn't leave very much else. And then if you have the Suez Canal, you have all the pillars of this country's economy potentially under threat. It seems very difficult for this country to sustain itself if these protests continue to expand outside of Cairo to these key sectors of society.
Richard, on day 16, bottom line, do you feel like you have any sense of how this ends?
It seems very unlikely that the government can keep this up much longer. Something has to give. The key functions of the society have to continue, otherwise the state fails. If the state can't provide basic law and order and basic stability and basic economic prosperity to its people, then it seems like the state has failed. The government continues to say, give us time. We are working out all these constitutional issues. We need to have an orderly transition of power. That orderly transition of power is not happening. The government keeps saying President Mubarak's presence is a stabilizing factor. He needs to stay here to oversee this orderly transition, which, by the way, has been the United States line up until right now, that Mubarak kind of needs to stay in order to oversee this orderly transition. But it's becoming increasingly clear that his presence is not making the transition orderly.